Breathing was never meant to be something you manage with effort or thought. It was designed to regulate itself through movement, structure, and rhythm, yet modern humans interfere with it constantly, wondering why they feel tense, tired, or restless even when nothing is wrong. To understand how to breathe better, we do not need new techniques or complex methods. We need to observe a system that has never lost efficiency. Horses do not try to control their breath, and that is exactly why it works. This is not about copying an animal. It is about removing what prevents your own biology from doing what it already knows how to do. Breathing looks simple only because most people have never questioned what kind of creature they are breathing as. Every living mammal on land draws from the same invisible ocean of air. Yet the way that air moves through the body tells a completely different story about survival, emotion, and design. When you place a human and a horse side by side, the contrast in breathing reveals something far more profound than anatomy. It exposes how evolution chose certainty for one species and flexibility for the other, and how that single choice reshaped behavior, stress, and internal stability. At first glance, breathing appears universal. Lungs expand, oxygen enters, carbon dioxide leaves. The process seems interchangeable, as if nature used a single blueprint and simply resized it. But this surface similarity hides a fundamental divergence. The human breath is a negotiator. The horse's breath is a contract. One can adapt, improvise, override, and distort. The other must obey strict biological rules or fail. This difference begins not with psychology or training, but with structure. The horse is born into a respiratory system that allows no debate. Air enters only through the nose. There is no backup route. There is no emergency mouth breathing. There is no conscious override. The entire skull, airway, and soft tissue system of the horse is engineered around this single passage. This makes the horse what physiologists call an obligate nasal breather. The term sounds technical, but its meaning is stark. The horse either breathes correctly, or it does not breathe at all. Humans, by contrast, are adaptive breathers. Air can enter through the nose, the mouth, or a mixture of both. Breathing can be unconscious, semi-conscious, or deliberately controlled. It can be slow, fast, shallow, deep, rhythmic, chaotic, or paused entirely for short periods. This adaptability looks like an advantage, and in many ways it is. But it also introduces a vulnerability that no horse ever experiences. The horse does not choose how to breathe. The human does, and that choice changes everything. To understand why, it helps to step away from modern habits and imagine the original context in which these systems evolved. The horse is a prey animal. Its survival depends on immediate escape. When danger appears, there is no negotiation, no internal dialogue, no emotional hesitation. The body must deliver oxygen at a rate that supports explosive movement. This requirement shaped a breathing system that is tightly synchronized with locomotion. Each stride of a galloping horse coordinates with a breath. The chest, spine, diaphragm, and airway operate as a single mechanical unit. Breathing is not something the horse does. It is something the horse is. The human story is different. Humans evolved not only as movers, but as planners. Survival required endurance walking, tool use, social coordination, and later language. Breathing had to support not just running, but speaking, signaling, suppressing sound, holding breath, and regulating internal states during social interaction. Flexibility became more valuable than rigidity. The mouth became an alternate airway. Conscious control emerged. Breathing became a bridge between the body and the mind. This bridge is powerful, but it is also fragile. When a horse senses danger, its breathing does not collapse into confusion. It accelerates in a clean, efficient way. Airflow remains nasal, filtered, pressurized, and rhythmically linked to movement. Even under extreme exertion, the horse's breathing remains mechanically coherent. The system has no alternative modes to fall into. A human under stress behaves very differently. The moment perceived danger arises, breathing often shifts upward into the chest. The mouth opens, the rhythm fragments, the breath becomes shorter, faster, and less efficient. This is not because the human body is poorly designed, but because the adaptive system allows too many options under pressure. The nervous system can hijack the breath before the body stabilizes. This is where the so-called evolutionary flaw appears. The ability to breathe through the mouth seems useful, especially during intense effort, yet this same ability bypasses the natural filtration, resistance, and pressure regulation provided by the nasal passages. Mouth breathing delivers air faster but less controlled. It changes carbon dioxide balance. It alters blood chemistry. It sends different signals to the nervous system. Over time, it trains the body into a state of chronic readiness rather than grounded efficiency. The horse never faces this dilemma. There is no choice. The nasal passages warm, filter, and regulate air automatically. Nitric oxide production in the nasal cavity supports vascular function. Airflow resistance maintains optimal gas exchange. The breath enters the lungs prepared, conditioned, and synchronized with the rest of the body. Humans, however, must decide whether to use this system or bypass it, and modern life strongly encourages bypassing. Speech, stress, posture, screens, and social pressure all push humans toward mouth breathing without conscious awareness. This slowly retrains the respiratory system away from its most stable configuration. Unlike the horse, the human body adapts to misuse. It tolerates inefficiency, it compensates, it survives, but at a cost. This cost is often felt not as breathlessness, but as emotional instability. One of the most overlooked differences between human and horse breathing lies in emotional interference. Horses do not ruminate. They do not replay future disasters in their minds. Their breathing responds only to immediate physical reality. When the threat passes, the breath settles. There is no residual tension stored in imagined scenarios. Humans, on the other hand, can trigger stress breathing in the absence of physical danger. A thought alone can accelerate respiration. A memory can shorten the breath. Anticipation can tighten the chest. The breath becomes a servant to cognition rather than physiology. This is not a moral failure. It is a design consequence. The adaptive breathing system allows humans to modulate internal states deliberately. This enables singing, meditation, endurance training, and social bonding, but it also allows the breath to be disrupted by abstract stressors. The same flexibility that supports creativity also supports anxiety. Understanding this contrast does not require rejecting human design or idealizing animals. It requires recognizing that stability and adaptability are trade-offs. The horse trades flexibility for reliability. The human trades reliability for choice. This insight becomes practical when experienced directly rather than intellectually. To briefly feel the difference between these two designs, you can perform a simple experiment. Sit upright with the spine neutral and the shoulders relaxed. Gently close the mouth, not with tension, but with ease. Allow air to enter and exit only through the nose. Do not attempt to slow the breath deliberately. Simply observe. At first, the body may resist. There may be a subtle urge to inhale more forcefully. The chest may feel slightly constrained. This sensation is not a lack of oxygen. It is the nervous system adjusting to a different pattern of airflow. The nasal passages introduce resistance. Resistance increases efficiency but reduces speed. The mind often interprets this as discomfort. As the breath continues, notice the heart rhythm. For many people, it begins to settle without effort. The abdomen may start to move more naturally. The shoulders may drop slightly. This is the body re-entering a mode closer to the horse's default state, where breathing is regulated by structure rather than urgency. The key observation is not whether the experience feels pleasant or unpleasant. The key observation is how quickly the body responds when the option to bypass the system is removed. The horse never experiences this adjustment because there is no alternative path. The human experiences it precisely because the adaptive system has been underused. This moment reveals something subtle but important. Stability is not something the human body lacks. It is something the human body must be allowed to express. Another critical distinction lies in how breathing interacts with movement. For the horse, breath and stride are inseparable. The spinal flexion and extension during locomotion mechanically assist lung ventilation. Each movement supports the next breath. The body operates as a unified pump. Humans have partially decoupled breathing from movement. Modern posture often immobilizes the spine. Sitting reduces diaphragmatic excursion. Breathing becomes isolated in the upper chest rather than distributed through the body. Movement no longer assists ventilation. The breath must work harder alone. This separation increases fatigue. It also increases cognitive involvement. When breathing becomes inefficient, the brain steps in to manage it. This management consumes attention. Over time, breathing becomes something done rather than something happening. The horse never manages its breath. It trusts the design. The human can relearn this trust, but only by temporarily removing choice. This is why practices that restrict breathing options often produce rapid changes. Nasal-only breathing during gentle movement reintroduces mechanical cooperation between posture, spine, and lungs. Walking while maintaining nasal breathing forces the body to coordinate rather than override. The nervous system recalibrates not through instruction, but through constraint. This principle is central to understanding the difference between human and horse breathing. The horse is constrained by biology. The human must apply constraint deliberately to regain efficiency. Constraint is not limitation, it is guidance. When humans resist this idea, it is often because constraint feels like loss of freedom. But the horse demonstrates a different truth. Freedom of movement can coexist with strict physiological rules. In fact, those rules make freedom possible. The horse can sprint without panic because its breathing will not collapse under stress. Its body knows exactly how air will behave. Humans, lacking this certainty, often unconsciously prepare for failure. The breath becomes defensive. It anticipates shortage. It overreacts. The result is a feedback loop where anxiety disrupts breathing and disrupted breathing amplifies anxiety. This loop does not exist in the horse. It is tempting to frame this difference as superior versus inferior. But that misses the point. The human system is not broken. It is simply untrained in restraint. Modern environments rarely demand physical exertion that naturally re-educates breathing. The adaptive system remains under constant low-level stress without release. Reintroducing elements of constraint allows the body to self-organize again. This does not require intense exercise or complex techniques. It requires alignment between structure and airflow. Sitting upright, nasal breathing, gentle movement, and reduced cognitive interference allow the body to remember its own logic. The sensation of safety that emerges during this process is not emotional reassurance. It is physiological coherence. The nervous system detects predictable airflow, stable carbon dioxide levels, and efficient oxygen exchange. Safety is not declared by thought. It is registered by the body. This is why the experience of nasal breathing can feel unexpectedly calming even without conscious relaxation. The body recognizes a pattern it associates with sustainable survival. The horse lives in this pattern by default. Humans visit it occasionally. Understanding the difference between these two breathing designs offers a new perspective on stress, resilience, and self-regulation. It suggests that many modern breathing problems are not the result of weakness or poor habits alone, but of living in a system that offers too many options without sufficient structure. Choice without grounding becomes noise. Structure without choice becomes rigidity. The horse represents one end of this spectrum. The human occupies the middle. The challenge is not to become less human, but to borrow wisely from a design that has never lost its center. When you temporarily remove the option to bypass your natural respiratory system, you do not imitate the horse. You allow your own biology to speak more clearly. And in that clarity, breathing stops being a task and becomes a function again. This is the foundation upon which all further exploration must rest. Panic is not a failure of courage but a mismatch between breathing and reality. In the wild, survival does not reward imagination. It rewards accuracy. A nervous system that reacts to what is actually happening stays alive. One that reacts to what might happen wastes energy, loses coordination, and collapses under its own alarms. This is where the difference between horses and humans becomes unmistakable. Horses face real danger far more often than modern humans ever will. Yet they almost never panic the way humans do. The reason is not intelligence, temperament, or training. The reason lives in the relationship between breath and survival mode. A horse is born into a world where threat is immediate and physical. Predators do not announce themselves. Danger does not arrive as a thought. It arrives as sound, movement, vibration, and proximity. Because of this, the horse's nervous system is designed for clarity rather than speculation. It must detect, respond, and return to baseline with speed. Breathing is the central stabilizer in this process. The horse is a prey animal, but this does not mean it lives in constant fear. On the contrary, prey animals depend on rapid recovery. If a horse stayed tense after every disturbance, it would burn through its energy reserves and become vulnerable. The nervous system of a horse therefore prioritizes stability above all else. Even when startled, the system moves cleanly from rest to action and back again. Breath is the bridge that makes this possible. When a horse is calm, its breathing is deep, even, and quiet. The breath does not linger in the upper chest or hesitate between cycles. It moves rhythmically through the body, supported by posture and movement. When the horse begins to walk, the breath naturally adjusts to the pace. When it runs, the breath accelerates but remains structured. There is no chaos. There is no fragmentation. The nervous system and the respiratory system speak the same language. Humans operate under a very different internal condition. The human nervous system evolved to support abstract thinking, memory, anticipation, and planning. These abilities are powerful, but they come with a cost. The human brain can generate threat signals in the absence of physical danger. It can simulate worst-case scenarios, replay past events, and anticipate future outcomes. Each of these simulations can activate survival mode as if the danger were real. The breath responds to these signals. When a human thinks of danger, even without external threat, breathing often becomes shallow and rapid. The chest tightens, the rhythm shortens, the body prepares for action that never arrives. This preparation is incomplete because there is no movement to discharge it. The nervous system remains activated, and the breath stays locked in a defensive pattern. A horse does not experience this loop. The horse cannot imagine a predator that is not present. It cannot replay yesterday's escape. It cannot project tomorrow's danger. Its nervous system responds only to what the senses confirm. Because of this, the breath is never hijacked by thought. It is guided solely by physical demand. This distinction explains why horses can recover from startling events almost instantly. A loud noise may cause a jump. The heart rate spikes. The breath accelerates. But once the stimulus disappears, the system resets. There is no mental residue to maintain arousal. The breath returns to depth and rhythm on its own. Humans often struggle with this reset. The problem is not that humans are weak or oversensitive. The problem is that the survival system has become disconnected from physical resolution. When the breath accelerates without movement, the body remains in preparation mode. Without action, there is no signal of completion. The nervous system does not know when it is safe to stand down. Breathing plays a decisive role in this confusion. In a horse, breathing is inseparable from movement. Each step, each stride, reinforces the rhythm of the breath. The spine flexes and extends. The diaphragm moves naturally. The lungs fill and empty in coordination with the entire body. This integration ensures that survival activation always has a physical outlet. In humans, breathing often occurs in isolation. Stress may increase respiration without corresponding movement. The body prepares to run, fight, or flee, but remains still. Muscles tense without release. Breath shortens without rhythm. Over time, this pattern trains the nervous system to associate breathing itself with threat. This is why panic can arise seemingly out of nowhere. The breath has learned to signal danger even when none exists. Horses never develop this association. Their breath is never separated from function. It exists to support action, not to respond to thought. Another crucial difference lies in how stability is defined by the nervous system. For a horse, stability does not mean stillness. It means coherence. The system is stable when breath, movement, and perception are aligned, even while running at full speed. A horse can be in a stable state because the internal signals agree with each other. For humans, stability is often misinterpreted as immobility. Sitting still while the mind races creates internal conflict. The body wants to act. The breath wants to accelerate. The muscles want to move. But the external environment demands stillness. This mismatch confuses the nervous system. The horse never faces this contradiction. When the system activates, movement follows. When movement ends, activation resolves. This is why horses appear calm even after intense exertion. The breath slows naturally. The body discharges excess energy through movement. The nervous system completes the cycle. Humans, lacking this completion, carry unresolved activation into rest. Breathing remains altered. Sleep becomes shallow. Recovery is incomplete. Understanding this difference reveals a powerful principle. Panic is not caused by danger itself. Panic is caused by unresolved survival activation. Horses avoid panic because their biology does not allow unresolved activation. The breath always has a job. It always knows why it is changing. There is no ambiguity. Humans can recreate this clarity by reuniting breath with movement. This does not require extreme exercise or complex techniques. It requires simplicity and consistency. Walking is enough. Slow, steady walking provides a rhythm that the breath can synchronize with. When the breath aligns with steps, the nervous system receives a clear message. There is movement. There is progress. There is no need for alarm. The effectiveness of this lies not in effort but in attention. When walking slowly, allow the breath to follow the steps. Inhale across several steps. Exhale across the same number of steps. Do not calculate. Do not correct. Simply listen to the sound and feel of the feet contacting the ground. The body will naturally find a rhythm that feels sustainable. This mirrors the way a horse regulates its breath during movement. The breath adjusts to pace without conscious interference. The nervous system stabilizes through coordination rather than control. The key is to remove mental supervision. Humans often attempt to control breathing as if it were a fragile process. This control adds tension. It introduces judgment. The breath becomes a performance rather than a function. Horses never control their breath. They allow it to respond. By focusing on steps rather than technique, the human mind steps aside. The breath is free to organize itself around movement. This reduces cognitive load and allows the survival system to settle. Another reason horses do not panic lies in how their nervous systems interpret signals. A horse does not label sensations as good or bad. Increased heart rate is simply readiness. Rapid breathing is simply demand. There is no narrative attached. The body experiences sensation without interpretation. Humans attach stories to sensation. A faster heartbeat becomes worry. Shortness of breath becomes fear. Tightness becomes danger. These interpretations amplify the original signal. The breath responds to the story rather than the sensation. This feedback loop is absent in horses. The horse experiences the signal and moves accordingly. Once movement resolves the demand, the signal fades. There is no amplification through thought. Breaking this loop in humans requires reducing interpretation. Movement helps because it grounds sensation in function. When walking, increased breathing feels purposeful. It supports motion. The mind is less likely to label it as threat. This is why walking often calms anxiety more effectively than sitting and breathing deliberately. Movement gives the breath a reason. It restores meaning to physiological change. The horse never loses this meaning. There is also a social dimension to this difference. Horses live in herds. Their nervous systems are attuned to collective movement. When one horse moves, others respond. Breathing synchronizes across the group during flight and settles together during rest. This shared rhythm reinforces stability. Humans live in fragmented rhythms. One person may be rushing while another is resting. Social cues often demand suppression of physical signals. Breathing adapts to social pressure rather than biological need. This suppression contributes to chronic activation. The horse does not suppress its breath to appear calm. It is calm because the system resolves itself. Humans often attempt the opposite. They suppress outward signs while internal tension remains. Reintroducing rhythmic movement allows humans to bypass social performance and return to biological regulation. This does not mean humans should behave like animals. It means humans should respect the logic of their own physiology. The nervous system evolved long before language. It understands movement and breath. It does not understand deadlines, reputations, or imagined futures. When breath and movement align, the nervous system recognizes safety regardless of context. This is why a simple walk can shift mood more effectively than complex reasoning. The horse never reasons its way out of fear. It moves. Humans often reason themselves deeper into it. The lesson here is not to abandon thought, but to recognize its limits in regulating survival systems. Thought can plan, breath stabilizes, movement resolves. When these roles are confused, panic emerges. The horse never confuses them. The breath of a horse is not calm because the horse is fearless. It is calm because it is honest. It responds to what is happening and nothing more. The nervous system trusts the breath because the breath has never lied. Humans can restore this trust gradually, by pairing breath with movement, by reducing mental interference, and by allowing the body to complete its survival cycles. The breath becomes reliable again. Panic fades not because danger disappears, but because the body learns that activation will be resolved. This is the quiet intelligence that prey animals embody. They do not dominate their fear. They outgrow it in real time. When humans relearn how to let breath follow function rather than imagination, the nervous system remembers what safety feels like. Not as an idea, but as a physical fact. Breathing becomes inefficient the moment the body stops trusting itself and hands the job over to the mind. There is a silent shift that happens in many modern bodies, so gradual that it often goes unnoticed. Breathing, once a full body event, becomes compressed upward. What used to ripple through ribs, abdomen, and spine now flickers shallowly near the collarbones. The breath still enters the lungs, but the body no longer participates as a whole. This shift marks the difference between full-body breathing and chest-dominant breathing. And it explains why horses move through life with respiratory efficiency while humans often feel tense, fatigued, and mentally burdened by something that should require no effort at all. A horse does not breathe in parts. It breathes as a system. When a horse inhales, the expansion is not limited to the chest cavity. The ribs widen, the intercostal muscles soften and respond. The abdominal wall yields and supports. The spine subtly lengthens and flexes. The entire structure of the body cooperates to create space for air. Exhalation follows with the same unity. Nothing is forced. Nothing is isolated. Breathing is woven into posture and movement. This is not a technique. It is a consequence of design and usage. The horse lives in a body that moves often, rests fully, and rarely interrupts natural patterns. Its breathing muscles are not trained separately from the rest of the body. They are integrated by default. Because of this integration, breathing requires no supervision. The nervous system does not monitor it. The brain does not interfere. The body knows what to do. Humans, however, often breathe as if the body below the neck were optional. Modern human breathing tends to concentrate in the upper chest. The shoulders lift slightly with each inhale. The neck muscles tighten to assist airflow. The ribs barely move. The abdomen remains braced or collapsed. The spine stays rigid. This pattern creates the illusion of breathing while depriving the body of its natural support. The result is not simply shallow breathing. It is fragmented breathing. In fragmented breathing, the lungs are working, but the body is not helping. The diaphragm moves less. The rib cage loses elasticity. The abdominal muscles lose responsiveness. The spine stops participating. The burden of ventilation shifts upward, and the brain compensates by increasing effort. This is where fatigue begins. When breathing becomes inefficient, the nervous system interprets it as threat or insufficiency. The brain increases alertness. Muscles tense. The breath becomes faster. This cycle reinforces itself. Over time, breathing turns into a task rather than a background function. Horses never enter this cycle because their bodies never fragment the breath. One of the most striking differences lies in the role of the spine. In horses, the spine is an active participant in respiration. As the horse moves, the spinal column flexes and extends in rhythm with breathing. This movement assists lung expansion and recoil. The breath is distributed along the length of the body, not trapped in a single compartment. Humans often immobilize the spine. Sitting for long periods, slouching, or holding rigid posture reduces spinal contribution to breathing. The rib cage becomes stiff. The diaphragm loses range. Breathing migrates upward because there is nowhere else to go. This migration is not a conscious choice. It is an adaptation to restriction. The body adapts by recruiting muscles that were never meant to dominate breathing. Neck muscles assist inhalation. Upper chest muscles lift the rib cage artificially. The breath becomes visible rather than functional. The body survives, but efficiency declines. As efficiency declines, control increases. Humans often respond to breathing discomfort by trying to manage it. They take deeper breaths intentionally. They hold, push, or manipulate airflow. While these strategies may provide temporary relief, they reinforce the idea that breathing requires intervention. The horse never intervenes. This difference reveals a paradox. Humans believe control improves breathing, but control often disrupts the very coordination that makes breathing efficient. Horses demonstrate the opposite principle. By not controlling the breath, they allow the entire body to contribute. The uniqueness of human breathing problems lies not in weakness, but in overmanagement. The brain is exceptionally good at solving problems that require precision and planning. It is not designed to micromanage automatic processes. When the brain takes over breathing, it introduces tension and timing errors. The breath loses its natural rhythm. The body stops trusting itself. This loss of trust manifests physically. The neck becomes tight because it is doing work it was never meant to do. The shoulders ache because they assist inhalation repeatedly. The chest feels constricted because it is being lifted rather than expanded. The abdomen remains tense because it is disconnected from breathing altogether. In horses, the abdomen plays a central role in respiration. As the diaphragm descends, the abdominal wall yields and supports the movement. This creates a stable base for the breath. The rib cage expands outward rather than upward. The spine responds fluidly. The breath fills the lungs without strain. Humans often reverse this pattern. The abdominal wall is held rigid, often due to posture habits or aesthetic conditioning. This rigidity blocks diaphragmatic descent. The breath is forced upward into the chest. The neck and shoulders assist. The brain senses inefficiency and increases effort. The cycle continues. What makes this pattern particularly problematic is that it recruits cognitive resources. The brain begins to monitor breathing consciously. Attention is diverted. Mental fatigue increases. The body becomes dependent on conscious oversight for something that should require none. Horses never experience this cognitive drain. Their breathing does not compete with perception, movement, or awareness. It supports them. Because the body handles breathing automatically, the nervous system remains free to process the environment. Humans often feel overwhelmed not because of external demands, but because internal processes are consuming attention. Breathing should lighten the nervous system. Instead, it often burdens it. The key difference is not strength or lung capacity. It is distribution. Full body breathing distributes effort across multiple structures. Chest-dominant breathing concentrates effort in a few overworked areas. Distribution creates resilience. Concentration creates strain. The horse embodies distribution. When the horse inhales, no single muscle group dominates. The movement is shared. When it exhales, release happens through the same pathways. The body functions as a unit. Humans can experience this distribution again by removing interference. One of the most effective ways to do this is to change position. Lying on the back removes postural demands. Gravity assists diaphragmatic movement. The spine is supported. The chest does not need to lift against gravity. The body is free to reorganize. In this position, placing one hand on the chest and one on the abdomen provides feedback without judgment. The goal is not to force the abdomen to move, but to allow it. When the lower hand begins to rise more than the upper hand, the body is redistributing effort. This redistribution reduces the need for upper chest and neck involvement. The instruction to breathe slowly without forcing depth is crucial. Forcing depth reintroduces control. Slowness allows coordination to emerge naturally. The body finds its own rhythm when not rushed. As the breath slows and spreads, the nervous system senses efficiency. Heart rate often stabilizes. Muscle tone softens. The brain reduces monitoring. Breathing becomes background again. This is not relaxation in the emotional sense. It is optimization. Horses do not relax by trying to relax. They relax because nothing is interfering with function. Another subtle but important distinction lies in how effort is perceived. In chest-dominant breathing, effort is localized and noticeable. Each breath feels like work. In full-body breathing, effort is diffused. No single area feels strained. The breath feels lighter even if volume increases. Horses can increase ventilation dramatically during movement without distress because effort remains distributed. Humans often feel distressed even at rest because effort is concentrated. This concentration feeds anxiety. When breathing feels like work, the nervous system interprets it as demand. Demand without clear purpose creates unease. Full body breathing restores purpose by aligning breath with structure. It is important to note that full body breathing is not about maximizing air intake. It is about minimizing effort. Horses do not aim for the deepest possible breath. They aim for the most efficient one. Efficiency comes from coordination, not volume. Humans often chase depth and miss coordination. They inhale deeply while maintaining tension. The breath becomes larger but less effective. Carbon dioxide balance is disrupted. The nervous system remains activated. Allowing the body to breathe as a unit corrects this imbalance naturally. The role of the brain shifts from manager to observer. This shift is transformative not because it adds something new, but because it removes unnecessary labor. The brain no longer needs to supervise respiration. Cognitive resources are freed. Mental clarity improves. Horses live in this state continuously. Humans glimpse it when they stop interfering. There is also an emotional consequence to full body breathing. When the body participates fully, breathing feels grounded. Sensations are spread through the torso rather than concentrated near the throat. This grounding reduces the sense of vulnerability that often accompanies chest breathing. Chest breathing feels exposed. Full body breathing feels supported. The horse's massive rib cage, strong abdominal support, and flexible spine create a sense of internal containment. The breath is held by the body rather than floating unsupported. Humans often lack this containment because posture and breathing are disconnected. Restoring containment does not require building muscle or learning complex patterns. It requires allowing existing structures to re-engage. When lying on the back and breathing slowly, notice whether the abdomen softens on inhale. Notice whether the ribs expand sideways rather than upward. Notice whether the throat remains relaxed. These observations guide without forcing. Over time, the body remembers how to distribute effort. This remembering is not intellectual. It is mechanical. The nervous system recognizes that breathing no longer requires vigilance. Safety increases. The urge to control diminishes. This is why full body breathing feels calming without trying to calm. The body is simply functioning well. The horse never experiences breathing as a separate activity. It is inseparable from being alive in a body. Humans often separate it because modern life fragments movement, posture, and attention. Reintegration restores efficiency. The contrast between chest breathing and full body breathing is not a matter of preference. It is a matter of cost. Chest breathing costs energy, attention, and emotional stability. Full body breathing conserves them. Horses pay the lower cost because their biology enforces integration. Humans pay the higher cost because their biology allows fragmentation. The opportunity for humans lies in choosing integration. By lying down, reducing effort, and allowing the lower body to participate, the breath becomes a shared task again. The brain steps back, the body steps forward. Breathing stops being something you do and returns to something that happens through you. That is the quiet efficiency animals never lose and humans can rediscover. Breathing becomes effortless again the moment you stop asking it to do more than support life as it is happening. When movement, posture, and nasal airflow are allowed to work together, the nervous system settles without being told to relax. Nothing mystical is required, and nothing new needs to be added. What changes everything is removing interference and letting the body complete its own cycles. Notice how different you feel now compared to when this video began. That difference is not imagination. It is biology returning to balance.